Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Hyperion Hub, your meeting place for all things Disney. Now your hosts.
Hello again, everybody. This is John Alois, along with my cohorts, Sean Degenhart.
Hey, howdy, hey.
And John Redling-Schaefer.
Hello there.
How are you guys?
Good.
Wonderful.
We like to start our shows off with our Disney views, and this week that falls to me. And I'm going to talk about a couple of new movies, full-length feature films on Disney+. The first one is a famous children's book called The One and Only Ivan. And both my kids read this story in school. And it stars Sam Rockwell, Danny DeVito, and Angelina Jolie. And it's about a gorilla. He's the main attraction at a shopping mall circus, and wants his freedom. And it takes place in the 1980s, and it's kind of inspired by a true story. And the animals actually speak, and that's where Danny DeVito and Angelina Jolie and Sam Rockwell come in. But a touching film, and you can tell where there were parts that were probably true. Good movie. Both my kids liked it. And again, they remembered it from reading it in school.
Yeah, did your kids think that it tracked closely to the book? I've seen that from multiple sources that they say it did a pretty good job of doing that.
Yeah, actually, they both did say that. They never seemed surprised by any of the decisions that were made or anything like that. My daughter, I think, read it more recently, and she liked it. They both liked it a lot. The other film is called Magic Camp, and it stars Adam Devine and Jillian Jacobs. And Devine's character is a down-and-out magician, but he's hired as a magic camp counselor because that's kind of where he peaked as a kid. And he's trying to find himself again as a magician, and in the meantime, he's inspiring kids. It's exactly what you think it is. It's a summer camp for magic. So he was very funny. I find him funny anyway. My daughter actually got a little bit misty-eyed at times. So both these films are filled with a lot of heart, and they're both brand new movies on Disney+.
Great. I'll have to check them out.
All right, we have a very special guest this week. Dr. Christopher Tremblay joins us. He's an author and an educator. Dr. Tremblay, welcome to the Hyperion Hub.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
A few months ago, we had a couple of episodes dedicated to Disney locations you can visit outside of the theme parks. And Dr. Tremblay contacted me and told me about the class he teaches and the accompanying book called Walt's Pilgrimage, which showcases various locations where Walt Disney spent significant time in his life and other places that he visited as well. It's a fascinating guide. Dr. Tremblay, what inspired you to create such a unique experience, both in the classroom and in the book, which, by the way, is available for public purchase as well?
Yeah, great question. And the inspiration for Walt's Pilgrimage comes from two kind of worlds that collided. So in December of 2013, I was actually visiting Chicago for the Museum of Science and Industry. They were hosting the Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives exhibit. And I went there and was, of course, immediately reminded of Walt's time in Marceline. And I was like, you know what? I need to get to Marceline, Missouri. And at that same time, in that month was when the Kickstarter fundraiser started for fundraising for the Walt Disney birthplace. And so, of course, I got on board and made a donation to show my support. And so I was like, all right, I need to get a couple of my Disney fan friends together. We're going to road trip it from Kalamazoo, Michigan to Chicago and then go to Marceline. That was my plan. And so I was sharing this with a very dear friend of mine, Jules, and she was like, wait a second, this sounds like it could be a study in the States class for the university. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, I think you need to go talk to the dean of the Lee Honors College and see what she thinks of it. And I don't want to say the rest is history, but I wrote it up as a proposal and it was accepted. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I got to plan this course. I have to create the curriculum. I have to do a travel schedule. Like, this is a non-traditional course. And so that's how the idea came to be.
So it's taught at Western Michigan. And can you tell us about what your class experience is? What happens inside the classroom and what happens outside?
Yeah, so the course is actually an 8-day course, and it's a part of the University Study in the States program. So different courses run every summer to different locations. So Walt's Pilgrimage, actually we travel from Michigan to Chicago to Marceline to Kansas City, and then we fly one way to San Francisco to go to the Walt Disney Family Museum. Then we drive down to Mineral King to see where the Disney Ski Resort was going to be, built, but never was. And then we spend 3 days down in the LA area. Of course, we go to Disneyland. And really the two kind of bookends of the course are the Walt Disney birthplace at the beginning and then ending at Walt's gravesite. And in that course of 8 days, we typically visit 40 places in Walt's life. It's a whirlwind. The days are long, from like 7 a.m. until like 10 p.m. And we just go and visit places that were a part of Walt's life, where he worked, where he lived, where he played, and even sometimes places that don't even exist anymore, but going to sites and talking about, why is this important to know as a part of Walt's history?
Fascinating.
That's amazing. That is. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. Now, what kind of student do you get? Do you get a broad spectrum, pre-meds, all the way to marketing? I mean, I would take this course and I wouldn't even matter what my major was.
Yeah, so because it's in the Lee Honors College at the university, it's open up to any major. It's honors credit as part of their graduation requirements. And I've had students from all different majors, from theater to aviation, psychology, nursing, everywhere in between. And typically, students are using it to fulfill usually a U.S. history or cultures course, because most of the content is going to be connected to that area.
Do you have students coming in with certain expectations that are then turned completely upside down by basically what they're thinking the course is going to be and what it actually is?
Not really. I think students, I think they're blown away after the course is done. I think they had no idea about the life of Walt Disney, right? And most of them, so they actually have to apply to my class. So that's the other interesting thing that is very different when, you normally sign up for a class, right? You don't have to apply and be accepted. And so the Study in the States program has an application process. And so I actually get to pick the 8 students, and it's only 8 because that's all that can fit into our 12-passenger van comfortably with luggage. And so what's always interesting when they write their essays for the application, they all sound a little similar, right? I grew up with Walt Disney. I went to the theme parks. I watched the movies, but I know very little about Walt himself. And or some people may have done a little bit of research, and so they're intrigued about him, whether it was the business side or the entertainment side or just his creative mindset. Those are usually the things that I hear about in advance of the course.
So it sounds a little bit like trying to get into Club 33, is trying to get into your course.
Yeah, that's actually a great analogy. And I would say that's true because I always have to turn students away, which just breaks my heart, right? I wish we could run multiple sections of this. Because the other thing that I probably didn't share yet is that this course, the students pay for 3 credits of tuition, but the rest of the trip, all travel expenses are all expense paid.
Wow.
I just figured someone would have to go get the van that gets left in Chicago when you take your, is that how they get paid? Is they have to go get the van?
So I actually have a dear partner in this adventure. His name is Anthony. Anthony's the director of advising for the Lee Honors College, and he drives with us the first 3 days. So I have a driver my first 3 days, which is such a nice cushion for the first 3 days. And then Anthony drops us off at the airport, and then he drives the empty van back to Kalamazoo. And that's his favorite part of the experience because it's all quiet and he gets to just, take his time going back. He always likes to joke with all the students. He'll tell them, Dr. Tremblay will not let me go with you to California, which of course is not true, but he likes to perpetuate the fact that I, am keeping him from the full Waltz pilgrimage. So Anthony has traveled with us the 5 times that we've traveled, to Marceline. So he's also now friends with all of our friends in Marceline, like Kay and Peter. We're like family there.
I'd like to pivot to the book. It's also called Walt's Pilgrimage, A Journey in the Life of Walter Elias Disney. It features more than 275 sites, including over 80 cities, spots in Canada and Mexico. How did you expand the class into the book, which covers a lot more than the class, obviously?
So I think after teaching the course for 2 summers, and knowing that I could only take 8 students a year, I did the math and realized that this would be a very exclusive experience. And I know there's a lot of major Disney fans out there. And so I thought, how could I help bring this to more people? And, I had been doing research for like 5 years, documenting everything, verifying things. And so I decided that I needed to put it down on paper and put it in a book, which became this part travel guide, part history, part biography, which is kind of a unique approach. But I also wanted people to be able to pick up the book, maybe wherever they live. They could plan a mini road trip or a massive road trip, and they could hit the places in Walt's life, the major ones, the minor ones, and it would appeal to people all across, the world.
Did you uncover any surprises maybe in your research, something that stuck out that was so different than what you thought you knew?
I think for me, the biggest, and I wouldn't say surprise, I think it was more of like a highlight and a revelation in terms of teaching and then, documenting things. When we go to Marceline, Missouri, I didn't know what to expect my first time going there, right? I knew small town America, right? But I was like, how much is really there, right? I mean, okay, great, Walt lived there. Well, let me tell you, after going there for 5 summers, that place is magical. And there is something special that happens to my students when we're visiting Marceline that I just can't describe on paper, but I see it happening. Perhaps it's because it's the second day that we've been together in that 12-passenger van, but it really is more about the hospitality of that town. And there are very amazing moments where I just feel like Walt has orchestrated things for us, right? And actually that happens throughout the whole trip. Like I think that the Walt Disney story is told so consistently. You imagine we're meeting all these different Disney historians in all these different cities, and we're the common denominator, right? We're the ones who are traveling his life in chronological order. And to hear people tell his story so consistently just blew me away, like the details that people had. The also interesting thing is, like, by the time we get further into the journey, people are trying to tell us about Walt's life in Chicago and Marceline and Kansas City. And my students were like, we know, we've been there. Because, again, they've been immersed in it and they're just absorbing, everything from there.
Well, and I think what's important is you have quite the collection. And we're talking about one book, but I see children's books. I see, Walt's resume. There's a whole slew of, you've dedicated quite a bit of your life to the literature side of this.
Yeah, I think this is what happens after you finish a doctorate degree. You find other projects to do.
So that's what happens. That's what happens.
I thought you went to Disney World.
Yeah. I'll never know that. But so go ahead. Tell us about these.
I did that too, right?
Quite a collection is correct.
Yeah. So I think that, as I sometimes I feel like I'm channeling Walt, right, with his synergy and his creative genius, where, I think about a creative way to share his story, right? And that's, for example, how Walt's resume came to be. I had actually, for my class, put together a one-pager that highlighted all of Walt's job titles and kind of things that he created as an entrepreneur, because I wanted to show students, right? Like he had a paper route. I mean, granted, it was Elias that forced him to do it. But again, he started working, pretty early in his life. And so I was like, I think that would be a cool way to tell his story is through his occupational experience and some of his extracurriculars, and to also talk about his education. And actually, one of my favorite discoveries that I made actually while I was writing Walt's resume, and this was just within the last year, I was able to track down that Walt had received an honorary degree from Chicago Public Schools. Up until that point, I had never stumbled upon that. I actually had to go deep into the board minutes for the Chicago Board of Education to find the resolution that had the text about it, which actually, I'll be honest with you, the text was actually incorrect factually. So when I was putting that in the book, I had to kind of put a little disclaimer, clarify that. But that was kind of a cool discovery. And I think that's one of the things that I love about Walt's life is that I feel like, just like he said, Disneyland will never be finished. I feel like researching Walt's life will never be finished, because there's just all of these nuggets that if you dig a little bit deeper, I find some different things. And so that was just a fun recent discovery.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see that one person did so much in his life. Where does your Disney story begin? How did you become fascinated with all of this?
So I can thank my parents for introducing me to Disney characters, Mickey Mouse. As a child, I had the Disney books on my shelf. I had the Disney bed sheets and bedding. And then when I was 5 years old, we drove from Michigan down to Walt Disney World. And I still can remember visiting. We went on Christmas Day back in the 70s when nobody went to the park on Christmas Day, right?
Wow.
Before that was a thing. Like, I remember I felt like we had the place to ourselves, right? Because that was almost like sacrilegious that you would go on a religious holiday to a theme park, right? But my grandma lived in Tampa, so, we brought her along. And so I have some great memories of that experience when I was 5. We returned when I was 7. And so that just stuck with me. And then I remember when I was in high school, one of my first jobs, I met a college student who had done the Disney college program. And I was like, oh my gosh, tell me more. I even wrote to Disney for information. I still have that packet that they sent me from 1988. And I said that I was going to do that program when I went to Western Michigan University. And I did. So I did the Walt Disney World College program in fall of 1993. I worked at Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort, back when it was the largest resort on property. I'm one of the few people that walked away with actually making money on that program because I won a scholarship for designing a theme park called Downtown Disney.
What?
And I got $500. I had to sign away all of my rights. And then guess what happened right after that?
Wow.
The marketplace was renamed Downtown Disney.
No way.
Yeah. So I still have some of the drawings and the presentation that I did from that. So that's kind of like one of those like facts that I don't know if I can take credit for, but I will tell my story in the honest way and tell the timeline because, obviously I could have maybe made some millions from it, but I, signed it away and took the scholarship because I thought that was a lot of money and ran with it. Actually, the other thing I will share, and it's available to check out on waltspilgrimage.com, but just about a year and a half ago, I created Walt's Midwest Tour, and there's a map drawing as well as a Google map that shows you, again, how you can travel. Again, if you're in the Midwest and want to do like what I would consider the first 3 days of Walt's Pilgrimage for the course, you can do that. And so that's kind of been a cool a cool new addition to that. So I've got some other ideas for some books in the works, but I'm not currently working on a project. But I will tell you that probably one of the top sellers of books that I have is actually Walt of the Day, where people can get a daily factoid about Walt Disney. And I think it just really appeals to Disney fans. It's a little daily dose of Walt, all things Walt. And I actually still read it every day to just remind myself about different things throughout the year that were a part of Walt's history.
Where can we find your books?
So my books are available on Amazon.com. You can also look for them on waltzpilgrimage.com.
I had no idea that you created Downtown Disney. I mean, that's such a wonderful claim to fame. Well, that we think might have happened, but
right. Well, so mine was actually a theme park that was like modeled after like a downtown cityscape. So you'd have like the Mouser Dome where sports events would go on. You'd have a roller coaster inside the skyscrapers. I actually had a shop that was going to be called Anniversaries that would only sell merchandise for every Disney anniversary because, they're famous for that.
I want to go to this place.
I know.
This
right?
should be created.
Maybe that should be my next, adventure. Maybe I should just write that up in a book, right? And people can just, pretend to build it.
Yeah, just call it Disney Springs. Nobody will know what that is.
Yeah, right. Has there been a highlight for you personally throughout your journey with Walt's Pilgrimage?
Absolutely. Without a doubt, it would be meeting Ron Miller, Walt's son-in-law. One of the goals I had on the trip was I wanted to try, if possible, to connect my students to somebody from the Disney family, somebody who knew Walt, who could tell personal stories. And I'll never forget the day that, so I tried very hard to try to reach Ron Miller. And actually it was Dave Smith, the founder of the archives at Disney, who gave me some advice. And I reached Ron through his winery at the time. And I'll never forget, he emailed me back and gave me his cell phone number. And I about fell out of my chair.
Wow.
And people were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "You're never going to believe this." I was so nervous to call him, right? So I called him and he says to me, he was like, I have to tell you something. He said, I get many requests. He said, but there was something about your course and something that just told me that Diane would have been all about this, that I wanted to return your communication. And so my students had the opportunity to meet him in 2 different years. He hosted us at the museum, had lunch with us.
That's great.
It was just an amazing experience, something that I'll never forget. And that the first year I met him, I actually met his Walt's granddaughter, Jennifer, because she happened to be with them. And so, again, that's just a very memorable experience for me.
Yeah, not only did he obviously know Walt very personally, but he ran the company at one point. So, talk about an amazing, amazing experience. That's great. Very cool.
One of the only things that I wish I would have come up with this course while Diane was still alive, so that, again, I could have met her. Again, the museum in San Francisco is just top-notch and just a beautiful tribute to Walt's contributions to, American society.
One of my favorite places. Dr. Tremblay, thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. Please drop us a line. You can send us a voice-recorded message or an email at podcast@thehyperionhub.com. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please go and rate and review us so more people can find us. And if you like what you're hearing, go ahead and share it with your friends. We'll talk to you next week, everybody. Have a great week.
We're glad you could join us. We'd love to hear from you. You can email or send us a recorded audio message at podcast@thehyperionhub.com. Find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Hyperion Hub is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or its subsidiaries. We'll meet you next time at the Hyperion Hub.